For Book 2 of 1984, we're going to be doing an assignment that's called Literature Circles. And basically what that amounts to is that every person at your group is going to have a specific job that they are responsible for. And everybody needs to come to class on that day having read Book 2 and having completed the job that they are responsible for in order to have a full conversation and discussion, whatever you want to call it, at your tables. Okay. So I'm going to go through the four sheets, the four jobs that you will have to choose from for your lit circles. When we have everybody here, you'll need to get with your group members and decide who's going to do what job, so that there's no confusion and so that every job gets done on the day that is due. All right. So the first thing that you should know is that every single person is first going to be responsible for what you're looking at right now, which is the front page of your lit circle sheet. So every single person is going to do a summary of the reading and 3 vocabulary words. These are English words that you just are unfamiliar with, the page numbers that they come from, and the dictionary definition for those. And then in this column you have newspeak words. So these are words that are part of the official language of the party, words that are not part of our official English language. Write them down, the page number they came from, and then use context clues to figure out what that word means in the context of 1984. Okay, so that's the vocabulary section down here. Up here for the summary, this is a 100 to 150 word summary of Book 2. Okay, so read Book 2, write a summary, 100 to 150 words of what happens in Book 2. It's basically like your SparkNotes version, okay? So that's it. It's just for me to see some understanding of what you read based on the summary that you come up with, okay? Everybody is doing this job right here. Everybody's doing a summary. Everybody's doing vocabulary. The back side of your sheet is where things start to get a little bit different, okay? So there's 4 different back sides. The first job is what we're calling the connector. Okay, the connector's job is to make 2 outside connections with Book 2 of 1984. So these happen all the time when we read. You're reading and you say, oh, that kind of reminds me of something. Okay, so there's 3 different types of connections, and you're gonna make a choice here. It could be a text-to-text connection. In other words, as you're reading 1984, you are reminded of another book that you've read, a short story you've read, a movie that you've seen, a television series that you watched, or something like that. That would be a text-to-text connection. A text-to-world connection would be, as you're reading 1984, it reminds you of something that either has happened in the world historically or something that is happening currently in the world where you're like, oh, this reminds me of this current event that I heard of, or this reminds me of this thing that I learned about in history class or something. The third type of connection is text to self. So as you're reading, this would be something where it reminds you of an experience that you had, or maybe an experience that you heard of, through a friend or a family member or something like that, something that you connect to on a personal level. So you check the box here, and then over here you explain what your connection is, why it's relevant to 1984, and how it might help our understanding of the text. Okay, so what, why, and how. So you're going to have 2 separate connections, all right? Down here, this discussion question stuff, we don't worry about that right now. That will be the last thing that I talk about. The second job is to be the quizzer. So again, you see that the front side of this sheet is the same. The back side looks like this. If you are the quizzer for your group, your job is to write 10 quiz questions about Book 2. Quiz questions have 1 correct answer that can be found in the book. They should not be yes or no questions. They should not be true or false questions, but they should be basic comprehension level where anybody who read Book 2 should be able to answer them. Choose things that you feel would be important to know the answer to. Write 10 quiz questions, write the answers to those questions, and the page number that the answer comes from. On the day of our lit circle, you're actually going to give this quiz to your other group members, and they are going to take it. So you need to have the questions, you need to have the answers, you need to have the pages. Again, we'll use this later. The third job is called the quote detective. And if you are the quote detective, your job is to find one short passage from the text that seems to be important. This is kind of similar to our 3-2-1 that we did the other day, where I asked you to find 3 things in the text that either were important or seemed like they would be important, except for here you're just going to be a bit more specific with it. So instead of talking in generalities, you're going to put an exact quote, probably a few sentences, maybe even a short paragraph from the text in here that seems like it's pretty important to you, or seems like it's something that's going to become important later on. Write the passage out over here, analyze what is important about it, and analyze why it's important over here. So there's 2 types of analysis happening. What is it and why is it important? Okay. Lastly, the discussion leader, your job is to write 2 discussion questions about the reading. Discussion questions are different from quiz questions. They're open-ended, meaning that there's not one single correct answer. They focus on something specific in the text still, and they require analysis and evidence to answer, but there are multiple possible answers or multiple possible interpretations. They might have something to do with something related to symbolism, something related to a theme, something related to character analysis, could even be something connected. It could still be a connection, something connected to maybe another story that we've read in class or something like that, okay? But something where, you're still going to have to be talking about the text in order to answer the questions, but where everybody at your table could have something different to say. So you're going to write your questions over here in this box. In here, this is where you're going to let me know what the specific area of focus is. So in other words, if your discussion question has something to do with, like, I don't know, let's say it has something to do with the proles. So you would say in this box that, you're looking at certain page numbers or certain paragraphs, or maybe there's like a specific quote that you want to make sure that you talk about in your discussion. What are the specific things that you will try to focus on as you're talking about your discussion question? Over here in this box, let me know what literary element it has to do with. Is this a character analysis question? Is this a symbolism question? Is it a theme question? Or is it something else altogether? Okay, so discussion question, what specifically does it focus on? What pages do we need to be looking at? Or is there a quote or whatever? And what literary element? Okay, so now I mentioned that every single sheet has these 2 discussion question boxes on them. Okay, this is for, as the discussion leader is asking those discussion questions, and as you're talking about them at your tables, you are taking down notes on what it was that you talked about. Okay, what ideas did you cover? What pages did you look at? What quotes from the text seem to apply to the discussion questions that you were talking about? And we've done this all year, right? Every time that I have asked you to do discussion questions, I've asked you to write down what it was you talked about, or I've asked you to keep a log, or I've asked you to write down quotes and evidence and have page numbers and all that kind of stuff. So this is just for you to take notes as your discussion leader is leading you through the discussion questions that they came up with. Okay, so on the day of the Lit Circle, we're going to come into class. Everybody will share their summaries and their vocabulary words at their tables, and you'll collaborate. So if if somebody has something in their summary that you felt like you forgot, go ahead and add it. Okay, it should be collaborative. If somebody has a context definition for a Newspeak word and you maybe disagree with it, you guys need to talk about that and sort those things out, because we want these things to be as accurate as possible. All right, so we'll go through and you'll share your summary, you'll share your vocabulary. Then your quizzer will administer the quiz to the rest of your group. You will take the quiz, you will write down your answers, you'll go over the answers together, and so on. Connectors will share their connections, and you'll have conversations about them. Sometimes when a connector shares his or her connections, it might remind you of something that you hadn't thought of before, and that's the time to share those things as well. Quote detective, same deal. It's more than just, this is my quote, the end. There should be, you should have your books open to the page number of the quote. You should be seeing it in context. You should be responding to what your quote detective's reflections were on that quote with some of your own ideas and reflections. Should be a genuine conversation happening. And then lastly, of course, the discussion leader will take you through the 2 discussion questions, which again should be focused on a specific area, so your text should be out and open, and anything that you talk about, gets written down here. I will then collect all of those sheets together. And this part is important, okay? I'm going to collect all of your sheets together, and I'm going to staple it together, and it's going to receive 1 grade, okay? I need to say that again. Everybody at your table is going to get the same grade. This is a group thing. So that means that if you choose not to do yours, you are impacting yourself, and you're also impacting everybody else at your table. Likewise, over the next 13 days or however long it is that we have to read this, if you're sitting in class one day and you happen to notice that the person sitting next to you is not reading when they should be, you should remind them, hey, you've got a job to do, and whether or not you do that job impacts all of us, okay? So this is going to be collected for 1 grade. It's a 30-point assignment, and everybody will get the same grade for it at your table. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly how that's going to work, but you need to be perfectly clear on that everybody at your table will receive the same grade for your literature circle. I believe that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about as it relates to lit circles for now. I'll clear up anything that I need to when we have a chance to meet face to face, but I know that many of you are gone right now, and that's why I made this video. So with that, that's all I have to say. I hope that you all have a great time at prom. Please be safe, please be responsible, and look out for yourself and look out for each other as well, because I want to see all of your faces back here in class next week so that we can talk about stuff. I don't want anybody to make any poor choices, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. So with that, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.